Hi, I'm Bill Lynn. I'm the Vice President of Heritage Arsenal. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We actually have a guest collector in the Heritage Arsenal spaces, Nathan Marie, who is an Air Corps collector, Army Air Corps, World War II, specific to officers. He got completely excited about this at about age 13, and really his military career has followed his interest. He obtained what I believe is just absolutely museum quality four-pocket dress uniform that we wanted to feature today. But I wanted to talk a little bit about your collecting, what you collect specifically, what led to you becoming interested in this, and then we'll talk a little bit about the uniform behind us.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been collecting since I was 13 years old, and I really got into Air Corps stuff. I had a great uncle that was a ball turret gunner in 8th Air Force, flying missions over Europe, and after reading some of his stories, and when I got into collecting, at a young age, I really started focusing on pieces that I could do research on. I could track the families down. I could track the spouses or the service members down, and try to reconnect the families or the service members with those pieces.
Yeah. That's what I think is unique about your collection is all of the stuff is researched. I've been able to, the recipient of some of the sharing that he's been doing with the uniforms and things he's brought in, and they all meticulously researched. So I applaud you with that, because it's really, these inanimate objects are nothing unless you have the story behind it. And so, and one of the great stories is this uniform behind us. Somewhat controversial, okay, because Kermit K. Behan has the distinction of being the bombardier on the B-29 Bockscar that actually dropped the second atomic bomb on Nagasaki, Japan. He also flew in the Great Artiste as the bombardier in the mission 3 days earlier on the 6th of August 1945, and he is the only crew member of those two missions that flew both of them. And Kermit K. Behan is really interesting background, how he got selected by Paul Tibbets. And so I want Nate to talk a little bit about how Kermit Behan came to this crossroads of history.
So for starters, Captain Behan was born in 1918 in Joplin, Missouri. He went to school at Rice University and received a football scholarship. Upon graduation, he joined the Army Air Corps aviation program in 1939. He started in flight training, did not make it, and washed out actually, and switched over to Bombardier and finished his Bombardier training. After completing Bombardier school, he was assigned to the 97th Bomb Group, 8th Air Force, was flying missions in B-17 Flying Fortresses over Europe. He flew 17 missions over Europe, and then it switched over to North Africa and flew 13 missions over North Africa.
He got shot down a couple times.
Yes, that is correct. He was shot down twice over Europe, and he was shot down twice over North Africa, and actually had a couple crash landings as well that aren't even included in those stats.
And so he's an instructor at the Bombardier School, obviously a guy with a ton of background. He served in 8th Air Force, 12th Air Force, 15th Air Force. Now he's a Bombardier instructor, and some guy named Paul Tibbets comes to recruit what would be a hand-selected crew to participate in the Tinian project, right? So talk a little bit about the Tinian project.
Yes, so Paul Tibbets was selected personally to pick all the crew members for the Tinian project. He started with the guys that were going to drop the Hiroshima mission first, and then he actually handpicked the second crew. Paul Tibbets and Captain Behan do go back. They do know each other prior to this experience, but Captain Behan was an expert at being a bombardier. He was stated as being able to drop a bomb in a pickle barrel. And so he was actually hand-selected by Paul Tibbets to do this mission.
A pretty important guy. He's the one that's actually going to put the crosshairs on the release point. He's actually that guy. And in fact, the B-29 that flies the mission prior, the Hiroshima mission, the Great Artiste, is actually a tip to Behan's skills. The aircraft is actually named the Great Artiste because that's how he's referred to by fellow flyers, because he's so good at what he does. Now that B-29, most people don't know what the Great Artiste is. The Great Artiste is actually the data collection aircraft for the drop on Hiroshima. So they're measuring all the blast waves. They're measuring, how high the fallout goes. All of those data points is Behan's job on mission 1, and mission 2 is where he actually releases the device, right? So I find what's interesting about this uniform, actually classic 4-pocket, beautiful, original ribbon configuration to Behan, his next of kin dog tags as well as his later war dog tags around his neck, beautiful sterling set of bombardier wings. But what's interesting is this controversy of being associated with an event where, depending on the estimation you use, 35,000 to 50,000 civilians are vaporized in a matter of seconds. This is not lost on Kermit Behan. In fact, when the aircraft lands, Bockscar, which you can actually see at the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, when Bockscar lands, the entire crew is decorated. Paul Tibbets receives the Distinguished Service Cross. Every other member of that crew receives the Silver Star, the third highest award for valor. You will note on this uniform, as well as any uniform and photograph of Kermit Behan from this point to 1964, when he finally retired from the United States Air Force, chooses not to wear the Silver Star. And in several post-war interviews, he'll refer to the guilt that he had. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Nate, I don't think he's guilty about having a hand in the end of the war, right? That's what everyone's aim at that point was, to stop the suffering, stop the sacrifice. I think he was proud to be part of that. What he didn't see as particularly valorous was releasing a bomb that instantly killed a lot of innocents, right? And unfortunately, that was the means to the end. And it was his own personal decision not to wear that Silver Star at any point in his career or afterwards. So just an interesting aspect of the human behavior, this controversy surrounding how the policy-wise, how we elected to end the war. And it really, this one man with his finger on the button was the instrument, right? And yet Kermit Behan was a real man who thought about his actions even years later. So anyway, a spectacular uniform. Thank you so much, Nate, for bringing this in. This is museum quality stuff, and we wanted to bring that to you today here at Heritage Arsenal.